How's everybody doing? So I'm here to talk about the freak factor. Why are we talking about freaks at a conference for heroes? It's really simple, because heroes are freaks. Heroes stick out while everyone else tries to fit in. Heroes see strength where everyone else sees weakness. If you want to be a hero, you need to be a freak. And I have one simple message for you today. It's that what makes us weird is also what makes us wonderful, and what makes us weak is also what makes us strong. One of the first things that people want to know about me is, how tall are you? I've always been weird whether I like it or not. And the answer to that is, I'm 6'6", but I'm 6'9" in heels. And one of the problems with growing up tall and growing up poor is you grow up faster than your family's ability to get you pants. And so as a kid, I always had pants that never made it all the way down to the floor. I always had, we called them high water pants or floods. My mom didn't want me to feel bad. She told me they were capri pants and they were coming back in style. I'm 6'6". My wife is 5'3". If that's hard to imagine, just realize that in our relationship, deodorant is much more important than breath mints. So when I was growing up, I was always weird, and I didn't like it. I wasn't glad I was weird. I thought that what was weird made me awful, and what made me weak is what made me wrong. Robert Quinn said in his book, Deep Change, that deviance will always generate external pressures to conform. When you perform beyond the norms, the systems will adjust and try to make you normal. When you're different, when you stick out, even when you stick out in a positive way, you heard AJ talk about positive deviance, you're always going to experience pressure to conform. People who are going to push you back to the middle. The reason we don't have more heroes is because people are afraid to be freaks. And we don't have to teach people to do this. Psychologists explain that we all have something called negativity bias. It's fundamental human nature. It means we tend to see what's wrong instead of what's right in any given situation, even when what's wrong is really, really small and what's right is really, really big. And we don't have to teach people to do this. I was watching Dora the Explorer with my daughter one morning. How many of you ever watched Dora the Explorer? How many of you, all of the Spanish you know is from Dora the Explorer, right? So I'm watching Dora the Explorer with my daughter, and she's saying something to me, and I'm like, you need to be quiet because we're about to make it to the Troll Bridge, and if we don't get the riddle right, we're never going to make it to Candy Mountain. And she keeps talking to me, and I hear she says, Daddy, is your tummy full? And I said, no, Daddy's tummy isn't full. We just woke up. We haven't even had breakfast. I need you to be quiet here because I'm not sure which direction we're supposed to go on the map here and what we need from the backpack. And she keeps going, though. And so finally I pause it, and I give her what psychologists call focused attention. And so I said, okay, honey, what do you need? We've already talked about this. And she stops talking to me, and she starts poking things. And she pokes my belly a few times, and then she looks up at me real curious and asks me, do you got a baby in there? Nobody had to teach my daughter to find what's wrong with me. I have skinny arms, I have skinny legs, I have a skinny neck. The only place I'm not skinny is right here, and that's what my daughter noticed. My daughter noticed what was different about me, and my daughter also noticed what was wrong with me. We naturally notice what's different and what's wrong with other people. When I was a kid, I had a lot of things that were wrong with me. I couldn't sit still, be quiet, or do what I was told. Those are three pretty big problems at school, and teachers called me rebellious and obnoxious and inappropriate and immature and told me I had no self-control and no self-discipline, and that if I didn't fix those things, I was going to end up homeless and living in a van down by the river. Sooner or later, they'd send me to the principal's office. I remember I was in 3rd grade. He sat me down on his lap, which seems questionable now looking back on it, and he told me, he said, there's 3 kinds of bad people in this world. And I'm like, this is a bad story. It doesn't even have good people in it. He said, there's 3 kinds of bad people in this world: bad people, really bad people, and people who are too far gone. What he was telling was, Dave, you're on the wrong path. And at the edge of the wrong path is a cliff. And when you fall off that cliff, you get hurt so badly, you never get a chance to get back on the right path. Dave, you need to learn to sit still, be quiet, and do what you're told, or you're never going to be a successful person. Ken Robinson said in his book, The Element, that many highly talented, brilliant, creative people think they're not because the thing they were good at school wasn't valued or was actually stigmatized. In other words, there was something they were good at, and not only did people not see the goodness of it, all they saw was the disadvantages, all they saw was the problems. And that was certainly true for me, because it turns out that I get paid to do 3 things. I get paid to stand up, not to sit down. I get paid to talk, not to be quiet. And I get paid to run my own business as a professional speaker, not to do what other people tell me to do. Thank you. It turned out that all of my weaknesses were in fact weaknesses. I'm not arguing that they're not, but they were also strengths. And when I discovered that, I wondered if that might be true for other people, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. One of the other things about me, obviously, like we said, is that I'm tall. And being tall is a strength and a weakness. It's good to be tall. When you're tall, people think you're smarter than you actually are. When you're tall, people pay you more. We always, almost always vote for the tallest candidate for president. It's good to be tall, except when it's not. And one of the places it's not good to be tall is the airplane. When I go to get on an airplane, the person kind of looks sad when they see me. And they say, "Sir, you need to watch your head," which is hard to do if you've ever tried. And I get on the airplane and I kind of try to get to my seat. My backpack's sort of dragging along the ceiling as I get there. But the seating's okay. I can get an exit row. I can get a bulkhead seat. I can get some legroom. But sooner or later, I have to go to the bathroom. And sometimes I think people thought I was exaggerating this story, so I actually took a picture of myself in the airplane bathroom. We kept it from the waist up to keep it clean, but you can see this is my left shoulder on the ceiling of the airplane bathroom, okay? And it's not the top of my left shoulder, it's the bottom of my shoulder on the ceiling in the airplane bathroom. What you can't see is that my legs are like this just to take that picture. So when I get into the bathroom, I have things that need to go in the toilet. The problem is that the toilet is over there and I'm over here, and so I need to get closer, but the other problem is that the ceiling goes like this. So as I try to get closer, it just pushes my face closer, closer to the toilet, and so that's not working, and so I've patented something I call the limbo yoga approach. You keep the upper body back, as you move the lower body in, and then you pivot, and you work it in there. The problem is you're getting closer, but the right parts aren't necessarily getting closer, and that's when I realized, wait a second, there is a sink right there. That is a whole lot higher, whole lot closer. That is custom designed for what needs to happen right here. And the point of that story, and there's a point to that story, the point of that story is it's good to be tall, but it's also bad to be tall. It's an advantage to be tall, but it's also a disadvantage to be tall. And I don't get to accept the advantages of my height without also accepting the disadvantages of my height. Every characteristic we have is a strength and a weakness at the same time. There's a downside and an upside. Peter Drucker said it this way. He said, "Strong people always have strong weaknesses too. Where there are peaks, there are valleys." The problem is we're uncomfortable when other people have valleys. We're uncomfortable when we have valleys. And we dedicate our lives at home, at school, at work into tearing down those peaks in order to fill in the valleys. But we end up damaging people's strengths as we try to repair their weaknesses. I think a good way to think about this is side effects. We all have side effects. Every medicine has side effects. There's no such thing as a medicine without side effects. And the only way to reduce the side effect of a medicine is also reduce the benefit of the medicine as well. Recently, they tried to put a coating around aspirin because the side effect of aspirin is it damages your stomach. And they put a coating on the aspirin that kept your stomach from getting damaged at all, and then in testing, what they discovered is they eliminated the side effect completely. It also kept the aspirin from being released into your body at all. They reduced the benefit at the same time that they reduced the side effect. George Eliot said that every limit is a beginning as well as an ending, so I want to show you the beginnings that come with some of the limits that we have. One of the limits that we all understand is dyslexia. People with dyslexia have trouble with their words, they have trouble with letters, they have trouble reading and writing, and because of that, people with dyslexia tend to do poorly in school, and so we're taught if you do poorly in school, you're going to do poorly in life. Which is why they were surprised in the United Kingdom when they were studying millionaires and they discovered that 50% of the millionaires in their study had dyslexia, even though only 10% of people in the general population have dyslexia. They were even more surprised in the United States when they found out that 33% of the entrepreneurs in a different study had dyslexia, even though only 10% of people in the general population have dyslexia. This is Ingvar Kamprad. He's the billionaire founder of IKEA. He has dyslexia. This is Richard Branson. He's the billionaire founder of the Virgin series of companies. He has dyslexia. And you might be thinking, maybe he's not as excited about having dyslexia as you are, but they actually asked him that question. They said, "How has dyslexia affected your success?" And he said, "Strangely, I think my dyslexia has helped." In other words, I didn't succeed in spite of my weaknesses. I succeeded because of my weaknesses. This is Paul Orfalea. Paul Orfalea was kicked out of 4 high schools because he was so dyslexic. Then he was fired from 4 family-owned businesses. His mother and his brothers and his parents, his sisters, all fired him from family businesses because he was such a bad employee. He started his own company called Kinko's and sold it a few years ago for $2.4 billion. What does Paul Orfila think about dyslexia? He says, I think everyone should have dyslexia. And what scientists are starting to discover is that's actually true to some extent. What scientists are discovering is that people with dyslexia don't have broken brains, they have different brains. And the same brains that cause them to struggle in school are the same brains that cause them to succeed in life at a higher level than most people. They have a weakness that is directly connected to a strength. I ran a 40-mile ultramarathon a few years ago. Some of you are like, hey, Dave, you don't look like you're running marathons right now. And that's because the doctor said it's not safe for the baby. Okay, so I finished my 40-mile ultramarathon. My brother-in-law came out. He said, Dave, you're crazy and awesome. And I think we have to be awesome, or we have to be willing to be crazy if we're going to be awesome. But the other thing that was interesting is my brother-in-law was praising me, and I was being rewarded for being very, very, very active. But my whole life, especially as a child, I was very, very, very active. And what do we call that when someone's a child and they're very, very, very active? We call it hyperactivity, and we give them medicine to fix it. When we turn up the volume on our characteristics, when we're more comfortable being who we are instead of trying to be someone else, we end up being praised and rewarded for the very thing that we used to be criticized and punished for. Seneca said there's no great genius without a touch of madness. The problem is because of negativity bias, when people have genius, we tend to miss it and see the madness. So my message to you today is really simple. What makes us weird also makes us wonderful, and what makes us weak also makes us strong. And one of the ways to be strong is to find the right spot. I broke my arm years ago, and they put me back together the best they could, but they put me together wrong. And I realized at age 20 why I'd struggled at the drive-thru for so many years, because I can't turn over my left arm. And so when I go to get the change at the drive-thru, I'm like, and they're like, give me the change. They're like, well, you have to turn your hand over. And I'm like, okay. Like, but you got to reach it out. My sister-in-law said I need to get a basket on a stick and just put it in there. But then I went to Australia, and in Australia they drive on the other side of the car, which means I can use this hand at the drive-thru. And I drove to the drive-thru right away, first place, because I wanted to know what it was like to be a normal person and bring the change safely back into the vehicle like everyone else apparently does. And the message there is simple. We can't always change who we are, but we can change where we are. When I'm in Australia, I'm still broken, I'm still damaged, I still have weaknesses, but it doesn't matter because I'm in a different spot. This is Thorkild Son. He hires people with autism on purpose because he has a software testing company, and in software testing you need people with hyperfocus who do the same thing over and over again, and those are two of the symptoms of autism. This is Michael Phelps. He had ADHD, but his mom saw hyperactivity as an asset instead of a weakness if he was in a situation that rewarded him for hyperactivity, so she got him involved in athletics, and now he's the most decorated Olympian of all time, not in spite of his hyperactivity, but because of his hyperactivity. We have all seen the Leaning Tower of Pisa. In the 1930s, they tried to fix the Leaning Tower of Pisa. They thought it made Italians look bad. And they failed, which was a very lucky thing for the city of Pisa, because millions of people have traveled millions of miles and spent millions of dollars to see what? To see a tower that leans. And now the people who run the tower say that because of its inclination, the tower has become the object of very special attention. And because of that, it's important to keep the current tilt due to the vital role that this played in promoting the tourism industry of Pisa. So the next time you're tempted to hide what's different about you, remember that what makes us weird also makes us wonderful, and what makes us weak also makes us strong. The next time you're tempted to criticize someone for being different, remember that what makes us weird also makes us wonderful, and what makes us weak also makes us strong. Heroes are freaks. Heroes stick out when everyone else tries to fit in. Heroes see strength where everyone else sees weakness. Thank you very much.
The Hero Roundtables are the global events that ask the question, what is a hero? You've just seen one hero talk. To find more and join the conversation, visit our website or social media.